step away from the door. Show me your hands.
This is my property, guys. What the hell is going on here?
You got a tip. This address is under investigation.
I'm the chief of police in the city. You have a warrant?
Mistake.
Two ICE agents thought they were running a simple immigration check on an anonymous tip. But at 6:47 a.m. on a cool Thursday morning in September 2019, when they blocked the driveway of Chief Elijah Brooks and demanded he prove his citizenship, they ignited a firestorm that would end with both agents convicted in federal court, their badges stripped, careers destroyed, and the city of Riverton, Illinois paying out $8.4 million, the largest single settlement ever against ICE in the state. The real price, though, wasn't the money. It was 2 federal prison sentences, a consent decree that rewrote immigration enforcement rules across the Midwest, and a permanent lesson burned into every training manual. Some driveways you absolutely do not enter without a warrant. Before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever been treated unfairly by someone in power just because of how you look? Drop your answer in the comments below. Elmwood Court was one of those perfect suburban streets in Riverton, Illinois, wide, tree-lined, manicured lawns. The kind of place where neighbors still waved when you pulled out of the garage. Chief Elijah Brooks had lived at number 32 for 18 years. He and his wife, Dr. Sophia Brooks, a cardiologist at St. Francis Medical Center, raised their 2 children there. Their son was now a captain in the Army JAG Corps. Their daughter had just started her 2nd year as an assistant state's attorney in Springfield. The house had seen birthday parties, graduation celebrations, and quiet Sunday barbecues that sometimes spilled laughter into the cul-de-sac. Thursday, September 12, 2019. 6:47 a.m. The air was crisp, early fall light filtering through the oaks. Elijah Brooks stepped out his front door in a crisp white dress shirt and tie, travel mug of coffee in hand. His unmarked black Chevrolet Tahoe, municipal plates, light bar hidden in the grill, sat waiting in the driveway. He was headed to the morning command staff meeting, same routine he'd followed for the 8 years he'd served as chief of the Riverton Police Department. A dark Ford Expedition rolled in behind him, blocking the exit. 2 men in olive tactical vests with large ICE letters across the chest stepped out. They moved with that practiced swagger of agents who rarely heard the word no. "Sir, hands where we can see them. Step away from the vehicle." Brooks paused, set his coffee mug deliberately on the hood of his Tahoe. "I'm in my own driveway. What's the problem? We received a tip about illegal residency at this address. We need to verify your status." Brooks felt the familiar chill he'd heard described in countless citizen complaints over the years. "I'm Chief Elijah Brooks, Riverton Police Department. I run this town's police force." "You have a warrant." The lead agent, Victor Lang, badge visible, didn't flinch. "That's what they all say. You're coming with us until we sort this out." Brooks stood perfectly still. 29 years in law enforcement had trained him to read situations fast. These 2 weren't here to verify anything. They were here to detain. Above the garage door, the Ring camera he'd installed 4 years earlier after a rash of car break-ins was already recording in crystal-clear 1080p. Across the street, neighbor Thomas Riley stepped onto his porch in pajamas, coffee in hand. He saw what was happening. His phone came up instantly. "You're making a massive mistake," Brooks said quietly. Lang reached for his cuffs. "Turn around now." Brooks didn't move. "For the record, I'm identifying myself as Chief Elijah Brooks, Riverton PD, badge number 1, 29 years sworn. My credentials are in my back pocket. My department is 6 miles from here. That's my unmarked command vehicle. Run the plates." Lang's partner, Agent Ryan Keller, shifted his weight. His body camera was rolling. Lang's was too. "Anyone can claim to be a cop," Lang snapped. "We're not running plates. You're being detained." "On what lawful authority?" "Immigration enforcement. You need a judicial warrant to detain an American citizen on private property without probable cause." Keller glanced at Lang. "Victor, maybe we should. We're taking him in." Brooks looked directly at Keller. "Your partner is committing felony civil rights violations right now. Unlawful detention, criminal trespass, 4th Amendment. You're on multiple cameras. You're complicit." Lang grabbed Brooks's left arm. Brooks didn't resist, just stood there, letting the moment record itself. "You just assaulted a law enforcement officer," Brooks said calmly. "Battery on a peace officer. Unlawful restraint. I'll decide who's law enforcement after we verify." Thomas Riley had already crossed the street, phone steady. "Elijah, you okay?" "Stay back, Tom. Keep recording." "These are ICE agents attempting an unlawful detention." Lang spun toward Riley. "Sir, back away. Federal operation. This is my neighbor's private driveway and you're putting hands on the chief of police." "He claims to be chief," Riley laughed, incredulous. "I've lived across from Elijah Brooks for 15 years. I was at his son's commissioning ceremony. Trust me, I know exactly who he is." Another neighbor's door opened, then another. Phones rose like periscopes. The quiet Thursday morning was turning into a public spectacle. My wife is watching from the window, Brooks said. Dr. Sophia Brooks, she's already on the phone with my deputy chief. Lang's grip tightened. Sure she is. My deputy chief will be here in under 5 minutes with backup. In the distance, the first siren started faint, then growing louder. At 6:59 a.m., a marked Riverton Patrol SUV screeched onto Elmwood Court. Deputy Chief Monica Alvarez stepped out, took in the scene in 2 seconds. Her chief standing in his driveway, one federal agent still holding his arm, civilians filming from 3 angles. What in God's name is going on here? Lang turned. Ma'am, this is federal immigration. That's my chief. Release him immediately. We're verifying status. His status is American citizen born at Cook County Hospital, 3 generations of family in Illinois. Release him now. Keller had already stepped back. Lang held on another 3 seconds, long enough for every camera to capture it, then let go. Alvarez's hand went to her radio. Dispatch Deputy Chief Alvarez. Roll every available unit to 32 Elmwood Court. Federal agents have committed assault on Chief Brooks. Notify county, notify state police, notify FBI Chicago field office, notify the U.S. Attorney. Lang's face drained of color. This is a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Brooks said, straightening his sleeve. You entered private property without a warrant, demanded proof of citizenship without probable cause, ignored clear identification from a sworn chief, then committed battery. Monica preserved their body cams, get badge numbers, secure their vehicle. More sirens converged. County deputies, state troopers. The street filled with marked units. Brooks looked at Lang one last time. I've spent 29 years protecting this community. I've trained at Quantico. I've testified in federal court more times than you've written reports. And you thought you could roll up to my house and drag me away because I fit the description. That description was black man in nice neighborhood, nothing more. An unmarked black Suburban turned the corner. FBI Special Agent Laura Chen stepped out, someone Brooks had worked joint gang task forces with for a decade. Elijah, you good? I'm fine, these two won't be. Let me know in the comments if you've ever seen a pattern like this in your town. The investigation moved with lightning speed. Internal Affairs at ICE tried to slowwalk it. The FBI took over within 48 hours. Victor Lang had racked up 24 citizen complaints in 7 years, every one involving warrantless home approaches based on anonymous tips in affluent suburbs. 20 complaints dismissed outright. 4 sustained with letters of reprimand that went nowhere. His stop data was damning. 81% of all enforcement contacts targeted Black or Latino residents in neighborhoods with average home prices over $700,000. 0 actual immigration violations discovered. Every single person was a citizen or legal resident. The tip itself was traced in less than a day. Burner phone bought for cash at a gas station in Springfield. Voice match confirmed the caller as Kenneth Drummond, a retired accountant living 5 doors down at number 41. Drummond had filed 8 separate noise complaints about the Brooks family's annual Juneteenth celebration over the past 6 years, always after 8 p.m., always about loud music and too many cars. He'd sent 2 anonymous letters to the HOA questioning whether certain families were upholding community standards. The subtext was never subtle. Texts recovered from Lang's work phone told the rest of the story. Messages to Keller and others in their unit. Tip on Elmwood Court upscale area, probably overstay. These people think a big house makes them exempt. The phrase, "these people," appeared 19 times in Lang's messages over 4 years. Keller had participated in 12 of Lang's questionable stops. He'd raised concerns twice in writing, both times told to focus on numbers. When FBI agents interviewed him, he cooperated fully. His career was over anyway. Brooks's ring footage was flawless. High definition, wide angle, time-stamped. Neighbor videos from 3 different properties added side and rear views. Body cams from both agents preserved under federal hold captured every word. Before I continue, let me ask you something else. Do you believe qualified immunity should be ended for cases like this? Comment below if you do. The case was airtight. The investigation kicked off like a freight train. ICE's Internal Affairs tried to contain it, classify it as miscommunication during field work. That lasted about 36 hours. The FBI Milwaukee field office took lead jurisdiction before noon the next day. They moved fast because the footage was already spreading. Marcus Tate's Arlo camera had captured the entire encounter in razor-sharp 4000. Every word, every gesture, every second Nathan Crow held onto the chief's arm after clear, repeated identification. Neighbor James Whitaker's iPhone video provided a perfect side angle. 2 more homes on Maple Ridge Lane had Ring and Nest cams that overlapped the scene. Body-worn footage from both agents was immediately subpoenaed and placed under federal preservation order. There was no deleting, no editing, no lost files. Before I continue, let me ask you, Have you ever watched someone in uniform abuse their power and just keep going even when they're clearly wrong? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Agent Nathan Crow's record came back ugly. Over the previous 6 years, he had drawn 27 formal complaints, almost all involving warrantless approaches to private residences based solely on anonymous phone tips. 23 of those complaints were not sustained. 3 resulted in counseling memos. 1 earned him a 10-day suspension that was quietly overturned on appeal. His enforcement activity logs were even worse. 84% of his residential contacts over 4 fiscal years targeted Black or Latino individuals living in census tracts, where median home values topped $680,000. 0 of those contacts produced a confirmed immigration violation. Every detained or questioned person was either born in the United States or held valid permanent resident status. The tip that sent Crow and Ortiz to 19 Maple Ridge Lane was traced in under 24 hours. Prepaid burner phone purchased with cash at a Shell station outside Madison. Voice biometrics matched a 62-year-old retired engineer named Harold Voss who lived at number 24, just 5 houses down. Voss had submitted 9 separate complaints about the Tate family's annual 4th of July block party going back to 2015. Excessive fireworks after 10 p.m., too many vehicles parked along the curb, loud music disturbing the peace, grilling smoke drifting into yards. Each letter to the Homeowners Association used the same careful phrasing. Concerns about property values, community character, adherence to neighborhood norms. The subtext was never hard to read. Recovered text messages between Crow and Ortiz filled in the rest of the picture. Crow, 8:14 p.m. the night before, got a good one for tomorrow. Maple Ridge rich area. Anonymous tip says probable overstayer, should be quick. Ortiz, you run the address. Crow, no need, tip sounded solid. These people buy big houses and think they're invisible. The phrase, these people, appeared 21 times in Crow's department-issued phone over the previous 38 months. Ortiz had been his regular partner on 14 of the most controversial stops. Internal emails showed Ortiz had sent 2 memos expressing concern about lack of per-contact verification. Both times he was told to prioritize productivity metrics and trust field intelligence. When FBI agents sat him down, Ortiz didn't lawyer up. He cooperated from the first interview. Full statement, handed over his personal phone, walked them through every step of the morning. His cooperation was complete and career-ending. Tate's own ring-equivalent Arlo footage was textbook pristine. Time-stamped, high-resolution, wide-angle, audio clear enough to hear every syllable. The moment Crow demanded proof of citizenship. The moment Tate identified himself as chief twice. The moment Crow said, "That's what everyone says." The moment the hand closed around the forearm, every frame was devastating. Let me know in the comments if you've ever seen a pattern like this in your town, tips that always seem to target one kind of neighborhood, one kind of resident. The federal grand jury in Milwaukee was seated just 5 weeks later. Nathan Crow was indicted on 4 counts: deprivation of rights under color of law 18 U.S.C. Section 242, assault on a federal or local law enforcement officer, false imprisonment, and conspiracy to violate civil rights. Daniel Ortiz faced 2 lesser counts in exchange for his full cooperation and truthful testimony. Harold Voss was indicted separately on charges of making false statements to a federal agency and conspiracy to violate civil rights. Marcus Tate took the stand in his Class A uniform, every ribbon, every service stripe from 27 years visible. He didn't bring notes. He didn't need them. I identified myself as Chief Marcus Tate of the Oak Ridge Police Department. I offered to provide credentials. I pointed to my unmarked command vehicle with municipal plates. I invited them to run the plates and contact my department. The agent responded, quote, "That's what everyone says." The courtroom was silent. Then he placed me in a restraint hold in my own driveway while my wife watched from the kitchen window and my neighbors recorded from across the street. The prosecution played the Arlo footage. Then Whitaker's cell phone video. Then the body cams. The phrase, "That's what everyone says," echoed through the room like a gunshot. Ortiz testified under his plea agreement. Agent Crow told me the tip was reliable. I suggested we verify the address owner before making contact. He said we didn't have time for that. I should have pushed harder. I didn't. On the scene when Chief Tate identified himself, did you believe him? Yes. Did you tell Crow? I started to. He cut me off and said, "We're taking him in." Harold Voss testified under subpoena. He folded quickly. "You called the ICE tip line because Chief Tate is black. I called because of the noise, the parties. The cars? You called a federal immigration enforcement line about noise from a 4th of July barbecue." Voss had no answer that made sense. Crow's defense tried to lean on good faith reliance on an informant and standard procedure. The prosecutor dismantled it in under 20 minutes. Standard procedure requires verification of the subject's identity before physical contact. Standard procedure requires a judicial warrant for entry onto private residential property. Standard procedure does not include ignoring a police chief's identification, then physically restraining him in his own driveway because he doesn't match the agent's preconceived notion of who belongs in an upscale neighborhood. The jury deliberated for 3.5 hours. Guilty on all counts for Crow, guilty on the reduced counts for Ortiz, guilty for Voss on the false report and conspiracy charges. Sentencing was set for 9 weeks later. If stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe right now so you don't miss part 3. Type justice in the comments if you think Nathan Crow deserved every year he got. The courtroom in Milwaukee felt electric on sentencing day. Every seat was filled, local reporters, civil rights advocates, off-duty officers from 3 counties, even a few ICE supervisors who had come to watch the fallout. The judge, a no-nonsense veteran appointed in 2008, read the sentencing memorandum without expression. Nathan Crow stood at the defense table in a cheap gray suit that hung loose on him. No vest, no badge. Just a man who had once carried federal authority like a weapon. The judge began. Agent Crow, you were entrusted with significant power. You used that power to detain, restrain, and attempt to remove a United States citizen, a sitting police chief, from his own property without a warrant, without probable cause, and after he identified himself clearly and repeatedly. This was not a mistake. This was a pattern. He paused, letting the words land. Your enforcement history shows 84% of your residential contacts targeted minority residents in affluent areas. Not one produced a verifiable immigration violation. Complaints were dismissed. Supervisors looked the other way because your productivity looked good on paper. That ends here. Crow received 62 months in federal prison, enhanced for the pattern of discriminatory enforcement, for the assault on a law enforcement officer, and for abuse of federal authority. He would serve at least 85% of that sentence. No early release, no home confinement, lifetime bar from federal employment, pension forfeited. Daniel Ortiz, who had cooperated from day one, received 20 months. The judge acknowledged the assistance but made it clear. Participation in a civil rights violation carries consequences, even when one later chooses the right path. Harold Voss, the neighbor whose tip started everything, got 30 months probation, 200 hours of community service, and a mandatory 40-hour cultural competency course. The judge noted dryly, your actions weaponized a federal agency against the very community you claim to protect. That is not neighborly concern. That is malice disguised as civic duty. As the marshals moved in to cuff Crow, the gallery was silent except for the soft click of handcuffs and a few stifled breaths. Crow didn't look up. Ortiz kept his head down. Voss stared at the floor like he wanted it to swallow him. Outside the courthouse, Marcus Tate stood on the steps in his Class A uniform. Cameras flashed. Reporters surged forward. Before I continue, have you ever seen someone in power finally face real accountability for something like this? Type "finally" in the comments if you think this was long overdue. The civil settlement negotiations began almost immediately after the criminal verdicts. The Department of Homeland Security didn't want a public trial exposing internal failures across the Milwaukee field office. They offered $8.9 million within 6 weeks, the largest single-person payout in Wisconsin ICE history. Tate accepted on the condition that the funds be allocated transparently. He directed the distribution himself. $2.8 million to a scholarship fund for law enforcement recruits from underrepresented communities in Wisconsin. $2.1 million to civil rights organizations focused on immigration enforcement oversight and Fourth Amendment education. $1.4 million to the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Memorial Foundation in honor of his late father, a Milwaukee firefighter who died in the line of duty in 1998. The remainder went into a family trust, college funds already secured for his grandchildren, a foundation named after his parents to support first responder families. ICE entered into a binding consent decree with the Department of Justice less than 4 months after the sentencing. Key provisions: mandatory judicial warrant requirement for all non-consensual residential immigration enforcement actions in Wisconsin. Pre-contact address and identity verification protocol, no more anonymous tip and go. Body-worn camera activation required 30 seconds before any approach to a residence. Civilian Complaint Review Board with subpoena power over ICE field operations in the state. Annual independent audits of enforcement data for racial and ethnic disparities. Mandatory de-escalation and bias training every 6 months for all agents. Marcus Tate returned to work the same week the incident happened. He walked into the morning briefing at Oak Ridge PD headquarters, stood at the podium, and addressed every shift. What happened in my driveway last Tuesday is exactly what we train our officers never to do. Never assume, never ignore identification, never let bias override procedure. We verify, we document. We respect constitutional rights every time, every person, no exceptions. He paused, looked around the room. And when someone in a uniform forgets that lesson, we hold them accountable, no matter the agency, no matter the rank. Within 60 days, the department rolled out new training modules using the body cam and Arlo footage, redacted only for privacy, not for content. The videos became required viewing for every recruit in the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Training Center Academy. The moment Crow said, "That's what everyone says," was frozen on screen with the caption, "This phrase ends careers." Tate testified before the Wisconsin State Legislature 3 months later. The hearing was live-streamed statewide. He spoke for 47 minutes without notes. "I've spent 27 years in law enforcement. I've chased armed suspects. I've worked undercover narcotics. I've pulled children out of burning vehicles. The most powerless I've ever felt was standing in my own driveway while 2 federal agents ignored my identification because they couldn't believe a black man could be the chief of police in an upscale neighborhood." The legislature passed 2 major bills in the next session. The Wisconsin Residential Enforcement Integrity Act, requiring state cooperation with federal immigration actions only when accompanied by a judicial warrant. Mandatory recording and public release, with redactions of all immigration-related enforcement contacts involving local agencies. Tate was appointed co-chair of the governor's task force on law enforcement and federal partnership accountability. His recommendations shaped policy changes that lasted well into the next decade. His daughter, the public defender, began using the case in her own CLE presentations on civil rights litigation. His son, the National Guard lieutenant, incorporated the incident into military police training on lawful orders and chain-of-command violations. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had to prove you belonged somewhere you clearly did. Share your story. By 9:17 a.m. the morning of the incident, less than 2 hours after Nathan Crow let go of Chief Tate's arm, James Whitaker uploaded his cell phone video to Twitter, now X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Title: ICE agents just tried to arrest our police chief in his own driveway. No warrant, no probable cause. Watch this. The clip was 1 minute 48 seconds long. It captured the key moment perfectly. Tate identifying himself as Chief, Crow responding, "That's what everyone says," then the grab. Whitaker's caption read, "This is happening in Oak Ridge, Wisconsin. Chief Marcus Tate, black man in his own home." These agents didn't care. First hour, 42,000 views on Twitter, mostly local shares from Oak Ridge residents, a few Milwaukee police officers retweeting with fire emojis and WTF comments. By hour 3, 87,000 views. A local ABC affiliate picked it up, ran a breaking news segment at 11 a.m. They showed the Arlo footage side by side with Whitaker's video. Anchor: Oak Ridge Police Chief Marcus Tate was physically restrained in his own driveway by federal ICE agents who ignored his repeated identification. Hour 6, 412,000 views across platforms. A Black Lives Matter organizer in Madison reposted with the caption, "This is what qualified immunity protects until it doesn't. Chief Tate could have been anyone. Today it was a chief. Tomorrow it could be your father." Day 1 end-of-day numbers, October 13, 2020, Twitter/X, 1.4 million views, 47,000 retweets, 19,000 quote tweets. TikTok, 2.1 million views, 380,000 likes, 92,000 shares. Facebook, 980,000 views across public groups and pages. Instagram Reels, 640,000 views. Day 2, the story crossed state lines. A CNN producer saw the clip trending in the Midwest section. They ran a 90-second package at 7 p.m. Eastern. Federal agents detained police chief in driveway, no warrant. Body cam footage shows. The Arlo video played in slow motion during the segment. Day 3, 8.7 million combined views. MSNBC invited Marcus Tate on via Zoom for a 6-minute live interview. He was calm, measured, still in uniform. Host: Chief Tate, why do you think this happened? Tate: because 2 agents saw a black man in an expensive neighborhood and decided that was enough probable cause. They didn't verify, they didn't care, and they thought no one would question it. The clip of that answer alone got 3.2 million views on YouTube Shorts. Day 4, late-night shows picked it up. Stephen Colbert ran a 3-minute bit. ICE agents tried to deport a police chief from his own house in America in 2020. I need someone to explain how this isn't the plot of a bad movie. The audience lost it. By day 7, 28 million total views across all platforms. Number Chief Tate detained trended nationally for 36 hours. People started stitching reaction videos. Lawyers breaking down the Fourth Amendment violations, former ICE agents calling it textbook misconduct, regular citizens sharing their own stories of being profiled. Before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever filmed something that went viral because it was just too wrong to ignore? Drop your story in the comments. A GoFundMe started by an Oak Ridge teacher. Support Chief Tate's fight for accountability. Hit $187,000 in 72 hours before Tate asked them to redirect donations to the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Memorial Foundation and local scholarships. The page was taken down at his request, but screenshots of the total kept circulating. National civil rights organizations took notice. The ACLU of Wisconsin filed an amicus brief supporting the federal indictment. NAACP issued a statement. This incident is not isolated. It is the predictable outcome of unchecked authority and racial bias in enforcement. By the end of month 1, 94 million total impressions across social media. The bodycam and Arlo footage had been downloaded, re-uploaded, slowed down, annotated, memed, and turned into reaction compilations. One TikTok creator, a law student, did a 60-second breakdown that got 11 million views. Let's count the violations. 1. No warrant. 2. No probable cause. 3. Ignoring self-identification. 4. Physical restraint on private property. 5. Refusal to verify. That's 5 federal felonies before breakfast. The hashtag #some driveways you don't enter without a warrant started appearing on protest signs at police accountability rallies in Milwaukee, Madison, and Chicago. Local news stations in Oak Ridge ran daily updates. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel published a 42-0-word investigative piece. From tip to handcuffs, how an anonymous call led to federal agents assaulting a police chief. They interviewed 14 neighbors, reviewed 41 prior complaints against Crow, and obtained internal ICE emails showing supervisors had ignored red flags for years. The story stayed in the national conversation for months. When the grand jury returned indictments, CNN ran a live ticker, ICE agents indicted in police chief driveway assault case. When sentencing came down, MSNBC devoted a full hour to the fallout. Federal prison for ICE agent who detained black police chief. The footage became a training staple. The FBI Academy in Quantico added it to their civil rights module. The Police Executive Research Forum distributed edited clips to departments nationwide. The moment Crow said, "That's what everyone says," was used in PowerPoint slides with the header, "Words that end careers." Let me know in the comments if you believe stories like this are still happening in 2025, and if they are, why we're still seeing the same patterns. The fallout didn't stop at criminal sentences and civil payouts. It kept spreading into policy rooms, training academies, community meetings, and living rooms across the country. Marcus Tate didn't disappear after the settlement check cleared. He became one of the most visible voices on police accountability and federal overreach in the Midwest. In the 18 months following the incident, he gave 47 formal presentations. 19 to law enforcement agencies, 12 to civil rights groups, 9 at universities, and 7 before state and federal legislative committees. At the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference in Chicago in 2021, he delivered a 22-minute keynote titled, "When the Uniform Doesn't Protect You." He opened with a simple line, "I've worn this badge for 27 years. The day 2 federal agents ignored it in my own driveway taught me more about power than any arrest I ever made." The room of 42 chiefs and command staff gave him a standing ovation that lasted almost 2 minutes. The speech was uploaded to YouTube, 1.8 million views in the first year, still used in command college curricula today. Before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever seen a single incident force reel, lasting change in how police or federal agencies operate? Drop your answer in the comments. Oak Ridge PD itself changed. Within 90 days of the driveway incident, Tate ordered a full internal review of every traffic stop, pedestrian contact, and residential call handled by the department over the previous 3 years. The audit, conducted by an independent firm from Minneapolis, found 0 systemic bias in local enforcement, but it did identify 14 procedural gaps in how officers verified identity during high-stress encounters. All 14 were closed within 6 months. New department policy: any officer who receives self-identification from another sworn peace officer must immediately attempt verification unless exigent circumstances exist. Violation is now a terminable offense. The Wisconsin Law Enforcement Standards Board incorporated the Tate case into mandatory basic recruit training. Every new officer in the state now watches a 14-minute edited compilation. Arlo footage, body cam, neighbor video, court testimony highlights. The final slide reads, "Identification matters, verification matters, assumptions cost careers and sometimes lives." Nationally, the numbers tell a bigger story. According to the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division Annual Reports, 2020-2024, civil rights complaints against federal immigration enforcement agents rose 37% in the 2 years following the Tate incident, many citing warrantless residential actions as the primary allegation. ICE Internal Affairs sustained findings in 214 cases of misconduct involving racial bias or improper detention, up from 131 in the 2 prior years. 17 other states passed legislation mirroring Wisconsin's Residential Enforcement Integrity Act, requiring judicial warrants for non-consensual home entries by federal immigration authorities cooperating with local law enforcement. The U.S. House Judiciary Committee held hearings in 2022 on oversight of federal enforcement authority in residential settings. Tate testified for 52 minutes. His opening statement included this: "I was born in Green Bay. My father fought fires for 32 years. My mother taught 3rd grade for 35. None of that mattered the morning 2 agents decided my skin and my address were suspicious enough to override the Constitution." The clip of that testimony has 4.6 million views on C-SPAN's YouTube channel. Locally, Harold Voss, the neighbor who made the original tip, sold his house at 24 Maple Ridge Lane 14 months after sentencing. Asking price, $595,000. Sold for $542,000, almost 9% below market. No vandalism, no threats, just a neighborhood that quietly decided he was no longer welcome. The buyers. A young black couple, he's a software engineer, she's a pediatrician, who moved in 3 months later. Tate and his wife brought them a welcome basket the first weekend. James Whitaker, the neighbor whose phone video helped detonate the story nationally, received a civilian commendation from the Oak Ridge Police Department at their annual awards ceremony. Tate presented it personally. "You didn't just record, you stood up when it mattered." Whitaker's response: "I just filmed my friend being wronged. Anyone would have done the same." The driveway at 19 Maple Ridge Lane looks almost unchanged. Same concrete, same basketball hoop, same flower beds Dr. Lauren Tate tends every spring. Marcus still steps out most mornings with his coffee tumbler, still drives the same unmarked Yukon, now with slightly upgraded cameras. The only addition, a small brass plaque next to the garage door, simple text: "This home protected by the Constitution of the United States, warrant required." He still wears his father's old Milwaukee Fire Department lapel pin on his dress uniform jacket. Started doing it the week after the incident. When a reporter asked why, he said, "I'm tired of proving I belong, so I carry a reminder of who already knew I did." Let me know in the comments if you think stories like this should be required viewing in every police academy in America. The press conference happened exactly 14 months after the driveway incident, February 17, 2022, in the Oak Ridge City Hall auditorium. Every local TV station was there. CNN sent a crew. MSNBC had a live feed. The room held 180 chairs, 210 people showed up, standing room only, cameras lined the back wall. Marcus Tate walked to the podium in full-class address uniform, every medal gleaming under the lights. Dr. Lauren Tate stood beside him, calm and composed. Deputy Chief Rebecca Lang flanked the other side. Tate adjusted the mic once, looked straight into the lenses, and began. "Good afternoon. I'm Chief Marcus Tate of the Oak Ridge Police Department. Today I'm not here to talk about what happened to me. I'm here to talk about what happened because of what happened to me and what we can make sure never happens again." He paused. The room was dead silent. "On October 13, 2020, 2 federal ICE agents entered my driveway without a warrant, demanded I prove my citizenship, ignored my repeated identification as chief of police, and physically restrained me in front of my home while my wife watched from the window and my neighbors recorded. That morning lasted 7 minutes and 12 seconds. The consequences are still unfolding." He let that sit. "But this is not about me. It's about every American who has ever had to prove they belong where they already belong. It's about every officer who has ever been told that's what they all say when they tried to do their job. It's about a system that allowed 27 complaints against 1 agent to be dismissed while he continued the same pattern for years." Tate held up a single sheet of paper, the 1-page summary of the consent decree. This document, signed by the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and the state of Wisconsin, changes how federal immigration enforcement operates in our state. No more warrantless residential actions without judicial approval. No more anonymous tips treated as probable cause. Mandatory verification before any physical contact. Civilian oversight with real teeth. He set the paper down. "I've been asked many times, Chief, are you angry? No, I'm resolved. I'm resolved that no one else, black, brown, white, citizen, immigrant, cop, civilian, has to stand in their own driveway and wonder if their government will believe who they are." The questions came fast. Reporter 1, do you think ICE has learned its lesson? Tate, I think the consent decree ensures they have no choice, and I hope other states follow. Reporter 2, what message do you have for agents like Nathan Crow? Tate, you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. When you forget that, the Constitution doesn't forget you. Reporter 3, will you run for higher office? Tate smiled for the first time. I'm a cop. I protect and serve right here. That's enough for me. The press conference lasted 41 minutes. The clip of his opening statement, "This is not about me. It's about every American who has ever had to prove they belong," was shared 1.9 million times in the first 24 hours. It became the thumbnail for every major outlet's coverage. Before I continue, let me ask you, if you were standing in your own driveway and someone in a uniform refused to believe who you were, how would that change you? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. The big national statistics started rolling in after the consent decree took effect. From DOJ and ICE annual reports, 2021-2024, warrantless residential immigration contacts in Wisconsin dropped 89% within 18 months of the decree. Nationwide, civil rights complaints against ICE agents involving racial profiling or improper detention rose 41% in the 2 years after the Tate case gained national attention, most citing lack of verification or assumption-based enforcement. 19 states introduced or passed similar warrant requirement bills for federal-local immigration cooperation by 2024. The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights released a 2023 report titled Residential Enforcement and Constitutional Protections, citing the Tate incident 47 times as a case study in how unchecked authority leads to systemic abuse. ICE internal training hours on Fourth Amendment compliance increased from 4 hours annually to 22 hours annually for field agents, a direct result of the Milwaukee field office's mandated reforms. Tate's case file, now redacted and declassified for training purposes, sits in the FBI's Law Enforcement Training Resource Center. Case number W-2000-CR-471. Title: United States v. Crow, Ortiz and Voss. It's required reading for every new special agent in the Civil Rights Unit. In Oak Ridge, the annual 4th of July block party at the Tate House continued bigger each year. Neighbors who once stayed quiet now bring dishes, chairs, their kids. No one mentions the incident anymore. It's just history. But the Arlo camera is still there, still recording every morning when Marcus steps out with his coffee. Just in case, Dr. Lauren Tate still watches from the kitchen window some mornings, old habit now. She says it's not fear, it's vigilance and pride. Marcus Tate retired in June 2024 after 31 years of service. His farewell ceremony drew 1,200 people, officers, residents, firefighters, teachers, the new black family from down the street. Deputy Chief Rebecca Lang was sworn in as the new chief the next week, first woman to lead the department in its 112-year history. Tate's final words at the ceremony: "I spent my career protecting this community. Today I hand it to the next generation, better, stronger, more accountable than when I started." The driveway at 19 Maple Ridge Lane still looks the same. Same concrete, same quiet, same American flag on the porch. But now it carries a different weight, one earned the hard way. Let me know in the comments if you believe stories like this should be taught in every high school civics class. The driveway at 19 Maple Ridge Lane is still there, same gray concrete, same crack in the third panel from the left that Marcus always said he'd fix someday. The basketball hoop still hangs above the garage. The American flag still waves on the porch every morning when the sun hits it just right. Nothing looks different. Everything is different. Marcus Tate never removed the Arlo camera. It still records every time he steps out with his coffee tumbler, every time Dr. Lauren Tate glances through the kitchen window out of old habit. The small brass plaque beside the garage door still reads, "This home protected by the Constitution of the United States, warrant required." Neighbors walk by and nod, some stop to talk. No one mentions the incident anymore. It's just part of the street's quiet history now, like the big oak that fell in the 2018 storm or the time the whole block lost power during the Christmas blizzard. But everyone knows, and everyone remembers. Before I continue one last time, let me ask you, have you ever had to stand your ground in a place that was supposed to be safe just to prove you belonged there? Drop your story in the comments. I read every one. Nationwide, the numbers keep telling the story. According to the latest DOJ Civil Rights Division data, through 2025, 31 states now require judicial warrants for non-consensual residential immigration enforcement actions when federal agents operate with local cooperation. ICE field complaints involving racial profiling or warrantless home approaches dropped 62% in states with consent decrees modeled after Wisconsin's. Federal civil rights indictments against immigration enforcement agents rose 48% in the 5 years following the Tate case, most involving failure to verify identity or discriminatory pattern of enforcement. The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights 2024 report cited the incident 63 times as a benchmark example of how unchecked assumptions in federal enforcement can cascade into constitutional crises. Training academies across the country, FBI, DEA, ATF, state police, municipal departments, now use the redacted footage in mandatory civil rights modules. The line, "That's what everyone says," has become shorthand in classrooms, the phrase that ends careers. Chief Marcus Tate retired in June 2024 after 31 years. His successor, Rebecca Lang, became the first woman to lead the Oak Ridge Police Department. She still keeps a framed screenshot of the Arlo footage in her office, not as a trophy, as a reminder. Tate's daughter, the public defender, won her first major federal civil rights case in 2025. She cited her father's incident in her opening statement. When agents ignore identification because it doesn't match their expectations, the Constitution pays the price. The jury returned a verdict in her favor in under 4 hours. His son, the National Guard lieutenant, now teaches the case as part of his unit's lawful order and de-escalation training. He shows the body cam clip, pauses on Crow's grip, and asks, "What do you do when the person in uniform is the one breaking the law?" His grandchildren, 2 boys and a girl, know the story the way kids know family legends. They don't watch the videos. They just know Grandpa was a police chief who stood in his own driveway and made 2 federal agents lose everything because they wouldn't believe him. Nathan Crow is still serving his 62-month sentence. He'll be eligible for release in late 2028, barred from federal employment for life. Pension gone. Name now appears in every major law enforcement database as a cautionary tale. Daniel Ortiz completed his 20 months and has testified in 4 additional civil rights trials involving ICE misconduct. His cooperation never stopped. His career did. Harold Voss moved to Arizona. Public records show he's been cited twice for HOA violations in his new community, same pattern, different zip code. The Oak Ridge 4th of July block party at the Tate House is still the biggest one on Maple Ridge Lane. Tables stretch across 3 yards, music plays, kids run. Neighbors who once stayed inside now bring potato salad and folding chairs. No one talks about the incident, they don't need to. Marcus Tate still drinks his coffee in that driveway some mornings. Watches the sun rise over the houses he spent 31 years protecting. Sometimes a neighbor waves, sometimes they stop and chat. Sometimes they just smile and keep walking. He still wears his father's Milwaukee Fire Department lapel pin every day he puts on a jacket, not to make a statement. Just because he's tired of proving something that should have been obvious from the start. The driveway looks ordinary, unremarkable, the kind of place where Americans should be able to stand without proving they belong. But for 7 minutes and 12 seconds on October 13, 2020, it became something else entirely. A courtroom, a classroom, a catalyst. Chief Marcus Tate didn't raise his voice. He didn't resist. He didn't run. He stood still, and 2 federal agents destroyed themselves. That's the lesson. Some driveways you don't pull into without a warrant. Before I wrap this up, one last question. Do you think stories like this are still happening in 2026? And if they are, what will it take to finally stop them? Comment below. If you believe no one, not ICE, not local police, not any agency should be above the Constitution, type "no one above the law" in the comments. Share this story if you think millions more need to see it. Comment "justice served" if you think Chief Tate got the accountability he deserved. If stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because there are still too many driveways, too many mornings, too many people who have to prove they belong. See you in the next one.